BBC News.
We've heard the news from the BBC. Now it's your turn.
You can post on facebook.com/World Have Your Say or get in touch via Twitter at BBC_WHYS.
Welcome to World Have Your Say.
Hello, I'm Jill McGivering. Welcome to World Have Your Say. France today arrested 19 suspected Islamists in raids carried out across the country. Most were in Toulouse, where Mohamed Merah, an Islamic radical, shot dead 7 people in a series of attacks. So is France getting it right? Should other countries take tougher action against Muslims with extreme views? Or is this a case of people being stigmatised for their views? Get in touch, call us on country code 44 20 70 83 72 72. And if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag WHYS.
If you don't want to make an international call, text country code 4477 86 20 60 80 and put "call me" in your message.
So are the French getting it right? Well, we've got 4 guests here to kick off the discussion, 2 in Luton in the UK. Please could you introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Jay Islam. I'm a recent graduate. I'm 23 years old.
Hi, I'm Aisha. I am 23 years old. I graduated in journalism and I'm a marketing assistant at the University of Bedfordshire.
And with me here in the studio in London.
Hi, I'm Wala. I'm from London and I'm an entrepreneur and a blogger.
Hi, I'm Mohamed Zitout. I'm a former diplomat and an activist, human rights and political activist.
Yes, did France get it right? Actually, there'd be different views, of course. Some would feel it was right. Personally, in my opinion, I feel it is actually. I think they got it right. I think they did something a lot of Westerns these days are extremely reluctant to do when there is an attack at you. We are becoming increasingly more and more not complacent, but under the ban of human rights, allow criminal acts to go unpunished or unquestioned. That's my opinion in the subject. Hamlet?
I think if because they are suspected criminals, maybe it's right to stop them. But if because they are Muslim, this is definitely not right. And if we just stop people, jail people, or arrest people because of their religion, that could be itself a crime, in my view.
Well, but I don't think in this particular case they were actually raided and arrested because they were Muslim. I think they are terrorists who committed terrorist act and threatened the safety and the livelihood of others, but they happen to be Muslims.
To say they are terrorists, I think this is not true, because it's only to a judge or to a court to label or to accuse someone of being such thing. I mean, even the French government, I think they say that maybe they will be linked to terrorism activity, but they haven't said that they are terrorists. Therefore, saying or accusing someone of being terrorist without proof and without a decision from a court, that's not correct and that's not proper in my view. And the other thing, because they knew that they are, let's take what you said, that are maybe doing a terrorist activity, or they are terrorists, as you said it, although I don't accept this labeling. Why they haven't done this before? That's the question. I think Sarkozy, for him, what Mohamed Merah has done is definitely, it's a crime. And killing civilian, it's a crime. Whatever the explanation or the pretext used, this is a crime. There is no excuse for killing civilian. Let's make this clear from the beginning. But what is it? Many think that because we are in, it was a big struggle to accede the power or for Sarkozy to be re-elected. Therefore, Sarkozy was behind François Hollande, the socialist representative for the presidential in France. And because he was so behind, they need really something to make it work. And I think that's why we have seen this crime committed. Definitely, I'm from those who think that Mohamed Marah has been manipulated to do that. Who has done it? I don't know, but definitely there is certain manipulation in this case.
Well, I wouldn't say. Okay, I will give you this. They're not maybe terrorists. They're suspected terrorists, but to say Mohamed Marah, I mean, what I'm trying to get my head around is nobody actually. Mohamed Marah went by his own free will and shot innocent people at the gate of the school, and literally, killed a whole family, a father and 2 kids. Nobody asked him to do that. Nobody, promote it. It was something he did on his own and bragged about it later on.
Let's bring in Jay and Aisha in Luton. Would you like to pick up?
I agree to an extent, but at the same time, I would question on what basis have they made these arrests today? What evidence do they have that these men that they've arrested have any link to this whatsoever? And sometimes I do think sometimes it's easy to blame the Muslim or to just stereotype Muslims when it comes to terrorism and extremism, and I don't commend what this man has done at all, but is it fair to then go and just make all of these arrests?
Well,
I think I agree with Aisha as well, in the sense that what the guy did, religion, extremism, everything aside, is not right, and he should be trialled fairly and rightly, and justice should be served, in the sense that he done it, and everyone is saying extremism is linked to it is a separate concept. I think whether extremism comes in the form of violent or non-violent, it's still extremism at the end of the day. But what he's done, he needs to serve justice for that.
What I'm getting here is the fact that the problem is because the word Islamist or Muslim is attached to it. If we look at the whole incident as a bunch of people, someone went out and killed, and then there's others who are from his group, from his team, from his clan or whatever, went and did the same thing or intended to do the same thing, and they were raided and they were found to have ammunition, to have weapons, to have paraphernalia, all leading to terrorism or to terrorist acts to be acted upon later on in the future. No talk about their religion, no talk about their ethnicity or where they come from. Would we still be having this conversation? Would we still feel...
I think you're correct in the sense that when Islam is highlighted nowadays, how much positivity do you see in it? It seems like it's used in a derogatory term all the time. Every time you hear something's gone on, when they find out it's to do with Islam or Islamism or anything like that, I think you see a different perception to the whole thing.
But who sees the different perception? My problem is, I think we as Muslims, it's our responsibility to actually deflect the negativity by not always assuming when people say Islam, it's a negative. I'm a Muslim, born and raised as such, and I don't feel every time they say a Muslim terrorist did this, that, or the other, it's an offense to me or it's a direct assault.
But why they say Muslim? Why they say Muslim? Why they don't say for the Norwegian man who has killed 70 or 75 young person in last summer? Why they didn't say Christian?
Because that was he was actually.
But no one mentioned his religiosity or his religion. They say a Norwegian man, a racist man maybe. a white man, but he didn't mention that he's a Christian. Why, when a Jew killed a Palestinian, we don't mention him as a Jew, but we mention him as an Israeli, or as a soldier, or as even someone protecting innocent and civilians?
Do you know what?
Why, in the
reason
case
why-
of Muslim,
do you know-
this is the case?
The reason why is because these Muslims who are performing these acts of terrorism or extremism, they always use religion. They always use Islam as the reason why they are doing it,
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
justify what they are doing.
Thank
So
you.
that is why nobody else talks about religion. That is why if a Jew or a Christian or anyone from another religion was to commit an act of terrorism, nobody would turn around and bring their religion into it. Because they would not be doing it in the name of God, like the Muslims are doing.
I think, no, in the name of God, millions and maybe hundreds of millions have been killed in the name of God since humanity starts. And we have seen that the Christian have slaughtered hundreds of thousands in the beginning in the name of God. And we have seen that in the Crusade. We have seen that against the Muslim and the Jewish in Spain. We have seen that in different pacts. And I can read you here plenty of resources and plenty of action which has been done in the name of God.
Yes, but how many people do you see in today's day and age doing it?
Scientists, philosophers have been accused of being heretics, and they have been killed. Indian, Vietnamese, Korean have been killed. In the New World, the slave trader, the former slave trader Columbus, killed many in the name also of Christianity. That's the problem. I mean, when it comes to people can use the religion, manipulate the religion, to use it, and in the name of this religion do their deeds, their crimes, but that doesn't mean it's belong to the religion.
You're listening to World Have Your Say on the BBC World Service. We're talking about the multiple arrests today in France of suspected Muslim extremists and asking, have the French got the right approach? You can call us on country code 44 20 70 83 72 72. And while we've been talking, someone has called in. That is Milind, who is an Indian living in Berlin. Milind, welcome to the programme. What's your point?
Hello there, good evening. I like to say that as an Indian who has grown up in a Muslim country, in the United Arab Emirates, and who experienced terrorism firsthand in India, and now I'm living in Germany, in Europe, I think that France has taken the right action here, because the thing is that these radical people, I'm not saying that all Muslims are bad, this is not the statement I'm making, but I'm saying that the people who abuse freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, and the freedom of free thought, and then carry out acts that actually deny other people I find that to be unfair and disrespectful towards the country they're living in. And frankly, anybody who does come out and say that, killing infidels or killing anybody in the name of any religion and any god, they should be just told to please, they should be either sent to jail or they should be sent away, because...
Yeah, certainly, I do agree with you. I mean, we shouldn't manipulate the religion or use the religion to kill people and to commit crimes. The problem, as we said, the problem here, and I think anyone who is reasonable will think about it, why this demonization of Islam and Islamists. The problem that we pass from Islam to Islamists to terrorists to killers. That's the problem, and with very, very shortcuts, and it's Islam at the end of the day which is demonized. We don't...
Say something on that, please.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of these people... Sorry.
Milind, go ahead. You wanted to respond.
What I want to say is that perhaps, all religions have committed atrocities throughout history. The problem which I see with Islam now is that there is a lack of self-criticism within the community, and that allows radical groups to become predominant or to become the main voice amongst discontented youth or whatnot. I think the solution has to start with Muslims themselves.
Milind, I completely agree with you. And I think that's where the problem is. I think Muslims, whatever you want to call them, moderate Muslims or, liberal or whatever, open-minded Muslims, I think the rest of the Muslim community needs to stand up to these people and work together to try and stop them from this, try and work towards pressing their views and actually showing them the right Islam. the right way to Islam, which, you know, a lot of them, and, you know, a lot of the youngsters are easily brainwashed, and that's another big problem within our own community where myself and Jay are living at the minute. And I completely agree with you, but how does that happen? How do you do that? Because I know there are Muslims who are reluctant. They are afraid to stand up to these people. So how do we address that?
And I think the word Islam is too easily used when it comes to extremism. A lot of people use Islam so easily as an excuse for, you know, their terrorist acts or whatever action they may take. But I think if you really look into the root of Islam, where does it come from? When you look at the best example of them all, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would he have done anything like this? Is this the type of example that he would be proud his people have set, you know, in the future? I mean, is that the type of man he was? Is that the example he set for his people? If you look into it like that, and if you know, come into it with an open mind and really look into the religion properly, you will see that it's not exactly like that. And I don't see how people can twist these sort, you know, use the excuses and twist it into reason for their actions.
I think the problem. Sorry. The problem, as I see it, is I think from within the Muslim community, and actually also people outside the Muslim community who adopt an attitude of don't talk about Islam, don't demonize Islam. It is an attitude that we need to repel ourselves. We need to stop every time the word Islam is mentioned. We need to stop standing to attention. We need to stop assuming that it is a negative, and even if it's used in a negative connotation, we need to stop hyperventilating about the whole thing and look at it from an objective standpoint and see whether the act that was committed in the name of Islam, was it a horrible act? If it was, then it was. But but we shouldn't always assume that people are demonizing Islam. We ourselves, we have a responsibility to actually not allow Islam to be used by us and by people who use it wrongly.
I don't think it's a responsibility of Muslim or Muslim community to stand up and to say that or this. It's the responsibility first of states. And Muslim in France particularly are not, if you compare the situation of Muslim in other countries, they are much better than in France, particularly in this country.
Why is it not the responsibility of Muslims?
Because simply, if that means you are just accepting the accusation that they have done it because Islam is allowed it, or because Islam, and that's we have to explain to them what is wrong and what is right. No, it's not because of that. And don't forget that because we have been told that those who, the criminals who destroyed the two towers in New York, because they have done it in the name of Islam, a whole country has been destroyed because of that. It's not up to us or up to you. It's the establishment who will use this as an excuse. We have seen Tony Blair saying that in 45 minutes we will see Saddam throwing nuclear and chemical weapons on us. What is this? A big lies, and we have destroyed a whole country. Millions have been killed because based on a big lie of George W. Bush and Blair. We don't have to. It's not up to Muslim to stand or not to stand. It's up to the state to do the right thing.
No, it's not.
One at a time. Sorry, one at a time. Well, I think Aisha was trying to get in.
One last point. One last point, though.
We sit back and watch them. We ruin our reputation and make us look bad in the media, in front of everyone. We have no right to jump in. We have no right to say anything to these people. It's not our responsibility to try and guide them to the right way.
It is our responsibility.
Guiding them. It's a thing. But accepting the accusation without even a trial, without even a judge to say that what happened was a crime.
Excuse me.
I'm not talking about these people in particular.
No,
I'm not talking.
Sorry, Aisha.
One at a time. And sorry, Melinda's been waiting very patiently. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just to point out one thing. I was in Bombay when there was a series of bomb blasts in the railway system carried out by Islamic terrorists from, I don't want to accuse any countries here, but it was carried out by extremists in the name of Islam.
Yeah, that's correct.
I witnessed this. You know what happened? The next day, the Muslim community of Bombay came out and they said, without any doubt, they said, we are against this. we are Indians first, we are Muslims second, and this is not humane. And I do not see this happening. I'm sorry to say, I do not see this happening amongst other communities, amongst Muslim communities in Europe, for example.
Yeah.
This kind of vocal support that says we are 100% against these radicals. They are mistaken. We are not the majority. The majority is not violent.
Exactly.
Listen,
this has to happen.
I think
Indian Muslims are. Let me just finish. Indian Muslims have had, there are riots in India between Hindus and Muslims and Christians and so on. But at the end of the day, India, as a country of Hindus, has had a Muslim president. We have Muslims everywhere, in business, in science, in movies. And it's because the Muslims of India are able to criticize themselves. And I do not see this happening amongst Muslim communities in Europe. And I'm living in Europe, and I'm seeing them every day. They are scared to criticize themselves because certain radical elements are protected by this notion of freedom of speech or freedom of religion.
Yeah.
But freedom of religion cannot be abused to deny freedom of religion.
This is individual responsibility. People are individually responsible to their act. Why others has to assume or has to accept or has to be to be blamed because others have done wrong things. No, for me it's the same if it has been done by Christian or by Jewish or by secular or by atheist or by Muslim. It's a crime, and we have full stop. He is a criminal and this is a crime. It has to be proven, of course, by a judge. We are just assuming till now because it could be turned, it could turn later on that he hasn't been involved in any case, and we have seen many cases where innocent people have been accused wrongly, then it turned not to be them. It turned to be others, or it turned to be manipulated or infiltrated. We have seen, I don't know if you know that former Secret Services, Chief Secret Services of the French DSC, the French Secret Services, said clearly that Marrah used to work for the DSC, used to work for the Secret Service, for the French Secret Services. What does that mean? It means that he maybe have been manipulated to do these things. Why we as a Muslim or as Christian or we should be responsible for what he has done? He has done what he has done is wrong. It's a crime. It should be penalized and punished, not killed. Of course, we have seen also that he had been killed. He could have been taken alive, and we could maybe hear the story from him. But certain in the French establishment decided that they don't want him to talk.
The French authorities, of course, say it was impossible logistically for them to take him alive.
Yeah.
Difficult for us here to judge. Well, a final comment. We're getting close to the news, but a quick comment on that.
Well, I'm surprised that Mohammed thinks the state needs to legislate how to treat Muslims and
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you said it's the responsibility of the state very early on in your conversation.
Because they are responsible for the security of the society.
Yeah, yes, but it's not responsibility for them to legislate it. You see what I'm saying?
Hold that thought. We're going to have to come back to it after the news. This is World Have Your Say, and we're talking about the French arrests today and whether or not France has done the right thing. More on this in just a couple of minutes' time. 20 years ago. Now the UK, Ireland, Portugal and Spain must make and enforce laws to stop allowing Islamic insurgents into Europe. But Umaru in Guinea is concerned. She writes, "It's an injustice to arrest someone because he or she is a Muslim. My advice to the French authorities is to please stop pointing fingers." What do you think? Get in touch. Call us on country code 44 20 70 83 72 72.
Call us on country code 44 20 70 83 72 72.
Well, I'm joined by I'm joined by Wala and Mohammed here in the studio with me, and by Chika Moses, a multimedia journalist for the local news station Channels TV, who joins us from Lagos. Chika, welcome to the debate.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Chika, what do you make of what has happened in France today?
Okay, so when I read about it, it talks about Nicolas Sarkozy saying he's doing this to address radical Islam. And as much as it sounds bad, I can understand, coming from Nigeria and having to deal with the Boko Haram news day in, day out, and a number of people dying almost on a daily basis, I can understand where that government is coming from. I can see it, even though it sounds unfair. I can understand it, because when you live with the terror of it, when you live with the terror of a sect acting in the name of a religion, it almost makes sense for people to take action. You know, they witnessed what one person could do, and, you know, 7 people dying at the hand of one man. And, you know, when it's here in Nigeria and there are hundreds dying and it's several people, you see people calling for strong action. So I'm kind of hoping that the French authorities are doing this following investigation, like actual investigation, and not just random arrests, which would be bad. But
yeah, that's
you can see
definitely
the
bad.
point.
It's random. The problem that it's random, and let me just clarify 2 or 3 things. Mohamed Merah was born and raised and killed in France. He has never been outside, maybe just for a couple of weeks. And he has never been in Afghanistan, as it has been said, or Pakistan, as has been said before. This is the dedication of the French, and if someone has to be responsible, is the French state, that they have failed to get us the right person. But even with that, I will say, in any society, absolutely in any society, we'll find always criminal and always crimes will happen. That's human. A crime, it's just linked to humanity from the beginning. The thing is, why we have to point out that when someone does a crime, when someone commits a crime, we shouldn't say that he's Christian or Jewish or atheist. We should just say that he's a criminal, and the criminality is, and the crime is individual. He should be responsible individually, not in any case other feel. Because I'm British, if a British is a pedophile outside this country or commit a crime outside, we say, no, it's not me. Or because I am Muslim, I will say, no, it's not me. Or because I'm Christian, it's not me. That means we have to apologize all the time, and all the humanity should keep just apologizing. If we keep fine, because there is thousands, if not maybe hundreds of thousands of crime every day. But when it happens to Muslim, that's the problem. We have to every day say it's not from Islam. Of course that is not from Islam.
Chica?
Yeah, but I understand where he's coming from, but then if it's a series of attacks in the name of one religion, then it becomes a problem. If it were Christians here doing the same thing, if it was a series of attacks and people were doing it in the name of God Almighty in heaven, then people here would turn on Christians, and they would expect some sort of strong action. They would expect government to take action, and it would not surprise people. Here, when you hear about the Joint Task Force or the State Security Service arresting people, it doesn't even matter if they grab them at random. People here are kind of excited, because then they feel, okay, government is doing something. It's that mentality where people just want to know that they are safe. And as much as we live, I mean, you live with different religions here in Nigeria, all sorts of religions, but if there is one particular religion that is doing the same thing, or let me not say that, if there is a group of people and they're doing something and they believe they are doing it in the name of one religion, then it becomes a problem, you know. So I see where they are coming from. I want to say, I know that it is not something that you blame on any particular religion, but
yeah, let me just say maybe one thing. I will tell you one thing. We the crowd, we the people, we are just manipulated by those who are in power or those who want to stay in power. And Sarkozy among them, those who are with Sarkozy are among them. They need to boost his popularity. He need to stay in power for a second term, and everything, absolutely everything is good, is right to stay in power. We are manipulated, and this is another case of manipulation. We shouldn't be manipulated, and even in the case when it's absolutely confirmed that there is no manipulation, it's individual, should stay individual. Never a society, a religion, or a race should be responsible for it.
Look, welcome back to Jay and Aisha in Luton, who were with us in the first half of the programme and have just rejoined us. Let me bring in now John, who was phoned into the programme. He lives in France, near Toulouse. John, what's your perspective from there?
My perspective is that I think the debate is going away from your original topic, which was Sarkozy's or the French government's reaction in these raids today the way to handle the problem. The problem is I think not 100% Islamic fundamentalist. initially, before the chap was caught, the feeling around here was that it was a right-wing extremist. The government almost concealed the fact that the soldiers who were killed were of Afro-Caribbean origin, and then with the Jewish attack, it was very much felt that it was right-wing extremists, and so no one thought of an Islam link. And
how does that affect what's happened today, John?
Well, I think what's happened today is that there's obviously, as one of your previous speakers was saying, a political element here in that we do have an election coming up next month, and I think there is to a certain extent a knee-jerk reaction in that people, the voters, need to think that something is being done, and I think something would be done because we do have right-wing extremists here. I think something would be done had it proven to be a right-wing extremist member who'd done it. I think so. There's the political element of it. I also think that we all read the news and listen to the news. I think the security services are aware of all these people. They haven't suddenly discovered these people in the last week since the chap was caught. They're aware of them, and they monitor them, and they watch them. And I understand that the theory behind that is that you watch the little fish in the hope that they lead you to the bigger fish. So I do think that it's a knee-jerk reaction for a political objective.
Yeah. The knee-jerk reaction for you mean the arrest? Yes. This morning's arrests?
Had the Mira incident not happened, they would have just continued watching them. But I think that the reaction here in the country, as your Nigerian caller was saying, something that the people need to think that something's being done and that they're not particularly happy at the fact that they're just being watched. And I think there's pressure that something has to be done, something has to be done. We do have the election coming up, so why not? But, I'm very convinced that these people are being watched the whole time. It was quite interesting in the news today that the Northern Ireland killers of the policeman, their trial, I think, came to an end this morning, and it was reported there that one of the bits of evidence against the gunman was the fact that he was being monitored by the security forces, and they had a bug in his car so they could actually pinpoint where he was. So I'm absolutely convinced that they're being watched all the time. They suddenly haven't found these people after 7 days, and I don't think they're just picking people at random. I'm sure they're known and being watched.
But don't you feel as a citizen if your security forces are watching those who could do harm to you, don't you feel comforted by the fact that the security is actually doing their job?
That's exactly.
I do feel very comforted by it, but I think there are an awful lot of people who, when you do have an incident such as this, who forget the comfort and think, oh, something has to be done, something has to be done, and that's, I say, is the knee-jerk, and perhaps it is better just to watch.
That's the problem, that because they know that humans want to be comforted, assured that, there is security, that's the problem. Sarkozy himself, 5 years ago, just few weeks before the election, he said that he's going to use the crusher. You know the crusher? The crusher to clean the neighborhood from these criminals and from these extremists. But where is the crusher? In fact, he just raised this for the French people that he's doing something, that he gives the impression that he's doing something. He used to be interior minister. Why hasn't done anything before? We know that this Fursan al-Izza, from those who has been arrested today, we know that they have been banned in last February. Why they haven't been arrested in February? You know why? Because he needs to stay in power. He needs to tell people, the French people, that he's doing something. Therefore, please, I am the right person. I should stay as president.
Chika, I think you were trying to get in Lagos. What do you make of this?
No, I hear what they're saying, and it's true. The same goes here. Whenever there is a big violent attack, you would see the suspects that they gathered. They're always paraded, and then people always tell you to stay calm, and not panic at all. So it happens everywhere. I really agree with the other caller who said that it's perhaps a knee-jerk reaction. They're doing it now just so that everybody calms down. And yes, politicians kind of want people to be, calm and voter friendly, I guess, want to really go out there and vote for them. So taking into account that makes sense. But given the attack that happened, arrests had to be made, or people had to just see something is being done so that they can wrap it up in their minds and feel comfortable
secure.
And feel calm.
Yeah, feel safe.
Yes.
Feel safe.
I think the other point that I would like to make, living here in France, is that a lot of people around the world would perhaps be surprised to know that this is a secular country. It's not an official Christian country, Catholic country, and all religions are free to be worshipped, apart from sects. We have this wonderful law where sects aren't allowed, but and we do have publicity recently about the you're not allowed to have any ostentatious show of your religion, the wearing of the burqa and so forth, and it's quite amusing to see politicians saying, of course, that means you can't wear a very large crucifix either. And so, where I live is largely a very rural part of France. So the south is very, very different to the north, and we don't have very large Islamic communities, as I think they do in the outskirts of the larger cities in the north. Toulouse is perhaps an exception, and Marseille is perhaps another exception because of the links to North Africa in the past. But never any problems in the past. It never occurs to us to think about that. Never uneasiness. And as I say, the initial thoughts were that this was right-wing. The fact that it was Islamic, quite a shock to all of us, really.
And it's even
I think
better
the view
for
that everyone's trying to point out here, the general consensus is that extremism is the thing that needs to be tackled. When Islam comes into it, I think it puts a bit more pressure, and I think as a Muslim in Britain myself, I sometimes feel offended that my religion has to come at the forefront of extremism every time extremism is mentioned in the news. When you talk about people trying to tackle, like Sarkozy, he's trying to do something about it right now. When he's trying to come in and trying to really highlight extremism, Islam really comes into the picture. But when you think about other people who are trying to really make a difference, like I live in Luton, and there's a fella called Stephen Lennon who's created this EDL group. Okay, now he's come in to try and, just because you say necessarily the person who speaks the loudest and is heard doesn't necessarily mean he's right. And if they're not being told what the right thing is, then you're always going to follow the wrong thing. Now what he's come into the picture and try and say is that he's trying to tackle extremism. Now, how is he trying to tackle extremism? By trying to actually mock the religion. He uses these uneducated examples. I think he's a really misguided fella, trying to really preach the wrong stuff to the people that will easily believe it, and that's why he gets a wave of followers. And that's with that sort of majority of people following him, I think he's overcome with all this power, and when someone's trying to stand up against him.
Absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And let me just add one thing. The problem of the humanity is extremism, either in the name of race, in the name of religion, in the name of skin, in the name. That's the problem. It's the extremism itself. But sometimes politicians need a certain level of extremism because that will help them. It will help them on their passing some policies. Like here, for example, in this country, we have seen many policies restraining and putting freedom of people, absolutely reducing the freedom in this country in the name of security. And we have seen policies also forecasted or in order to intervene in other countries because we feel that Iraqis are going to use chemical or nuclear. We have seen all these things. Politicians many times just play with our fears. It's a fear strategy, play with our fears. They know how we react. We know that we want to be assured and secured, and they use it in very, very good way. And just bravo, Sarkozy will be president again.
You're listening to World Have Your Say on the BBC World Service, and we're talking today about the multiple arrests in France of suspected Muslim extremists. We're asking, have the French got the right approach? If you want to get in touch, call us on country code 4420 70 83 72 72. Alan Farrell has posted on Facebook to say, surely the first responsibility of every government is the security of its citizens. If not, the people will have to take responsibility for it themselves, and that would prove disastrous. Not everyone agrees agrees, though. Akram also posted on Facebook saying, it's like the security services don't know who's a terrorist. Well, these arrests are just because elections are coming up. Let me bring in Steve in Nottingham in the UK. Steve, welcome to the programme. What's your point?
Oh, good evening. Yes, it's highly ironic, a beautiful irony, that France, as we would put it, has finally grown a pair. After dubbing England, and especially London, the capital, Londonistan, they've obviously been emboldened by this latest attack that they had on their own shores.
So you think they're proving their manliness?
Well, you can do, because it's the weight of public opinion, isn't it? You don't do these things because of political correctness, which obviously we feel like we suffer from in this country, and obviously it's the same elsewhere. And then when something like that happens, that's happened recently, they feel they can do stuff, because people, they're not going to be quite as vociferous in their objections to people being arrested. And the way I look at it is that the security forces are stretched to the limit. They're not going to spend an inordinate amount of time arresting people for no good reason. And I know that might sound naive to some people, but there are plenty of people out there that are doing things that are liable for arrest. So why go after people who are on the margins, if you like? It's not really worth it.
One of the
All you're doing is wasting your own time, aren't you?
Sorry to interrupt, Steve. One of the problems in this, of course, is we don't know exactly what evidence there is or isn't against these people who've been arrested. They're described as having extremist views. But where do you draw the line? People are allowed to have extremist views or not? At what point do they become a threat?
The fact of the matter is that really freedom of speech should be absolute. If they've got extremist views, I think the thing is, it's when it finally comes down to threats, physical or threats of violence. Anything back from there, to me, you can speak about. And I don't really mind if they're Islamist threats or right-wing threats or whatever.
Absolutely.
If it's words, it's words.
Yeah. It's the act. It's the terrorist act,
or the threat of an act,
or the threat of an act.
If not, you will find yourself with millions with extremist views put in jail, and we have got millions with extremist views in this country, in Europe, in America, in Algeria, in Sudan, everywhere you have got extremist views. The problem is when they pass to the act, yes, the state has to act normally to prevent them committing that. But when the state or when the establishment within the state use this not to prevent an act, but use it in a political objective, for political purpose, for passing Sarkozy from being absolutely the loser of the coming election to come nearly now absolutely sure or nearly sure that he's going to win this election. Thus here the question, why it's now? Why it's just a few weeks before the election? Why it's not before? And why it's...
But Mohammed, also you have to also look at. I mean, you cannot say that the person who said something about people are free to speak. There is freedom of speech. Of course, people are free to speak. But then sometimes the speech people use actually incites hatred and incites terrorist acts and incites bad acts. So where do you draw the line?
Look, I think there's a few issues going on over here, right? The first issue, right, we can say that, yes, politics has a big part to play in this, and perhaps, this is actually all about politics, this is why the arrests were made, maybe to boost Sarkozy did this to boost himself in the elections, fine. But there is another issue here which we are not addressing at the minute, which is the fact that there is extremism, and what are we doing to actually stop that? Not just in France, but in other countries like England. What is being done to stop extremism?
Yeah, you have got extremists in this country who want to throw Indian and Muslim to outside. They are extremists. You have got Muslim who are extremists. They want to kill all other who are not Muslim. You have got Jews who are extremists who want to have the land, the promised land, only for them and throw all Arabs. We have got extremists everywhere. Stalin wasn't Muslim. Hitler wasn't Muslim. These two people only, they are responsible of the killing of over than 100 million person. That's the problem. we should just talk in general order without pointing only one religion. All religion, in my view, have nothing to do with the violence. They came, or they are the religion are there for peace. They are there for the good things. But people, human, manipulate religion for their objective, for their goals, whatever. And when these people are politicians, they are absolutely mastermind in manipulation.
Aisha, go ahead.
Mohammed, let me ask you, you said that there are Muslims who are fighting against non-Muslims. Well, Mohammed, there are Muslims in our community where myself and Jay live at the minute, and these Muslims are actually fighting against other Muslims.
I know, that's what I said.
Yeah,
that's what I said.
So you're saying, you said earlier on that we, as Muslims, we have no responsibility towards preventing them from committing these acts of extremism or terrorism or whatever. We have no right to step in and say anything or do anything to stop them. Why not? If they are fighting against us, why shouldn't we?
This is the role of the state. This is the role of those who have got the power.
Role of the state? It is affecting us, Mohammed. It is affecting our living.
Yes.
Then the Indian will stop other Indian because they are different in their point of view. The Christian will stop other Christian because they are different in point of view. Then it will be
At the
really
end of
chaos.
the day,
the state cannot police everything, even people's behavior. It's ridiculous to expect the state to police everything, to make laws for people to behave and how to behave.
When I say the state, it's including the society. It's including the society.
Yeah, communities, societies, and families. It starts from as small and as little as the family. If I am responsible for my family, for my children, for everybody around me, my responsibility. If there is an extremist in my household, I need to deal with it.
In your household, not in your society.
Wait a minute. In my household, but that's how it starts. It's ripples. It starts with the family. You look after your own. You take care of after your own.
Because you are responsible by definition.
Yes, but then it ripples out, and then becomes a community.
I think you're right there.
And then becomes a community. It becomes my sister, my brother, their kids, and then the neighbors, the family. It ripples out. We all have to start with our own self, our own nucleus.
Yeah.
And then
Jay,
Jay,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Individually, everyone has to come into this with an open mind. Now, what everyone's been talking about today is what the media's shown, and if you're always going in to listen to the media is always around us. You see it all the time, and it's so easy to believe because it's there, and you believe it to be the facts. When you look back into Islam, does anyone really come into an open with an open mind, or do they just go into it based on what the media has said? Everything about these Islamists, all right, they're suspected, but I think they should be given a fair trial. But when the media highlights it, it's always going to come out to a negative term, because that's when people come in with very acute angle onto it. Now, the views of people who know what they're talking about, do we really listen to them? Are people coming in with an open mind in that sense? And if no one's telling them the right thing, you always will be following the wrong. That's what I believe. And if there's too many good people staying silent, like individually as well, and then there will be many bad things that happen in this world.
Chika in Lagos, do you want to have a final word?
I agree with people who've said that community leaders and religious leaders, they have a responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility to police what's going on around them. Because if we don't do that, I mean, here there are already whispers here of religious wars. If we don't do that, people would feel the need to take law into their own hands, and then it'd really be chaotic.
I don't think that people need to take their security on their hand. I think this is an individual responsibility. I think, of course, communities can play a role, but they are not forced to do so. Society can play a role. They are not forced to do so.
What I'm saying is that is what will happen.
This is the responsibility of the state first, and after all. But I will again say that we should not be manipulated by the politician. Be aware of that.
The debate will continue on Facebook. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're coming to the end of our time here for the programme. Thank you to Jay and Aisha in Luton in the UK, to Wala and Mohammed here with me in the studio, and to Chika in Lagos, and to all of you who got in touch with comments and tweets and everything else. Thank you. Take care. Speak soon.
BBC.